he had a store and a gin down at Smithsonian, what we call Smithsonian now. The river, if you remember, was actually on the Calvert side at the bend, where you see the bend in the river. Imagine that blue is almost all against the Calvert County side. And that the area, on the Lauderdale County side is flat, open farmland. And there was a creek flowing out of a limestone rock across out to the river, and along this were gins and stores. And this was an area where they could tie up a steamboat. And, at various times you could only get as far as Waterloo up the river. Then there were other times you could come on all the way up to Smithsonian, and they could ferry smaller boats on up to Florence. So, in his later years, Captain Smith was able to build his house, which that's solid limestone. That's not a veneer. Those are big limestone rocks. It was 3 stories. When you walked through the front door, there was a big staircase that went up inside. Off to the side, if you can see off there, there are about 2 or 3 side houses. One of them was an ice house. They would cut ice out of the river and cover it in sawdust for use. That house burned probably about 65, 66, somewhere in there, I believe.
His granddaughter's here. Ask her. His granddaughter's here.
Okay. It had gotten to be kind of a hangout with teenagers who thought it was haunted, and it mysteriously burned about that time. That's what it looks like today. Oh, this is a Reader house.
No, that's Smith. Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a Reader house. I believe Captain Reader was Columbus Smith's son-in-law. That's right. And he built this house, which, to my looking at it and having looked at both of them, this is the most elegant of the houses. Captain Smith's house was a statement. I'm Captain Smith. This is more of an elegant house. The windows were more arched. The walls were less formidable. They're smaller limestone rocks. I wish I had seen this house before it got burnt, but it's been burnt my entire life. Farming right now is still the mainstay of the Bender River. Cotton is still the crop. Like I said, most of the holdings are large holdings. Most of the farmers are tenant farmers. This is a sink. I don't know which sink right offhand, but it's a sink. The Bender River is covered with sinks. Sinking Creek takes its name. A sink is literally a low spot in the earth where the water just gradually goes down. The underlying the whole west Lauderdale County is a very karst limestone formation. At the same time, the water, available groundwater, west of Lauderdale County, the west part of Lauderdale County, is very limited. There's not even enough water to pump for agricultural irrigation. If you hadn't already realized that the resource of contention in the next 100 years is going to be water. We're running out of it. We're running out of it quick. Another sinkhole. This is a silo of the old Rowell plantation. Again, it just gives you an idea of the roll of the land. here's where I spent my summers. This is Lassiter Ditch. Now, until I had to sit down and come up with this presentation, I always thought Lassiter Ditch was dug by a man named Lassiter. I since then, just by researching deeds and whatnot, believe it was dug about 1840, and it was probably dug by Attorney Hanson and Knowles. It first shows up on deeds as referred to as the ditch that meanders across the Lassiter lands. And Thomas Lassiter had bought about 80 acres that wasn't even in the sink area. So I doubt seriously that he would have dug this. This ditch is about 2 miles long, originally dug by hand labor, mules and slides. A slide is kind of like a modern earth pan. They were about this wide, made kind of a scoop like this, and they had handles on them. You hooked them to a mule, you pushed down on the handles, and that brought the front of it up so it didn't catch. Then when you got to where you wanted to pick up dirt, you lifted up the front of it, the nose went in the ground, and started scooping up dirt, and when you got a bunch of the mule full, you laid back on the handles, and it lifted the nose out of the ground, and then you took it over to where you wanted to dump it, and you laid it over kind of like a wheelbarrow. And the reason I tell you that is because I want you to appreciate what a 6 foot ditch, 6 foot wide, 6 foot deep, 2 miles long would have involved. It might have drained 100 acres, maybe. I don't know that in this day and time I would have paid the money to drain land that way. But they had a lot of labor. Now, since that time, that 6 foot ditch looks like that. That's not even the deepest spots. Once the water started coming out of Cunningham Sink, as it was called, it's cut a ditch that's places probably 100 feet by 75 feet. The huge cut. The trick they had to do was to cut through a lip that was about 15 feet. The sink was formed just like a saucer, and they had to cut through one corner of the boat to make the cut. And we love to go fishing there. There's fish in there, lots of fish. That's some more of the ditch. This is where it leads up at the pond. This is the shallow end. This is the part you can actually still see the overburden that they moved. These are probably pictures from late spring because there's so much water in the ditch. I've seen this ditch full to the top of water.
This is Evans Spring, Blue Hole.
Evans Springs, that's it right there. Okay, this was Andrew Jackson's land. This is Evans Springs. This sits just a little bit to the south of this church. It's the headwaters of most of the water that goes into Sinking Creek. Again, Sinking Creek will drain water from the back of Millie Wright's house to all the way down to Canaan Church to almost to the Savannah Highway. But kind of the headwaters of it is the spring. This is back at my house. This is my planter's platform where I can see what's going on everywhere. This is part of Sinking Creek as it approaches the sinkhole. Spent a lot of my summers growing up and down through this ditch. Now, this is about the summer flow of Sinking Creek. Not a lot of water. This is a sinkhole. The water flows up, but it doesn't flow anywhere else. It just stops right there at that rock and goes down and drains. Only one person I know that knows where it goes beyond that, and that's Robert Walker. And Robert, you've actually visited part of the inside of it, I believe. So some of you might want to ask him about what's beyond the rock. Another view of it. More Sinking Creek.
And that's Woodland Spring.
Woodland, okay. After the water, part of the water that comes down Sinking Creek goes through the sinkhole. The rest of the water flows on down Lassender's Ditch to Woodland Springs. Again, the house we looked at earlier